He was on my ground. You all saw that, right? Everything inside the red line is mine.
Don't worry, it's not all bad. And there was some exaggeration in that introduction. So if you're in a hurry, here's the summary, so you can just pause this and look at that and go about your business. For everybody else, we're going to go through the patch notes. So first things first, I need to make some corrections to my previous video where I covered Hotfix 1, and yeah, something that was pointed out by Mikhail Filatov was that the TO55 got the NSVT, which is actually a pretty big deal. Let's go to the TO55. Let's try to go to the I'm on the air tab. TO55. So by getting the NSVT, it's actually really, really good. And you know, we'll get to this, but the T55 went up to 60 points. So now the TO55 is just way better. And it's 10 points cheaper. So take the TO55 if you can, but the availability is lower. You only get 6 TO55s instead of 9 or 12 T55As, I think. Let's check. Yeah, 6 TO55s and 12 T55As, so that's your trade-off basically. Do you want 6 of the good one or half a dozen of the other? So let's go about our business. Patch notes. Yeah. I'm just going to talk about multiplayer stuff. If you want to know about single player, you can read that in your own time. Plenty of people talking about single player. So yeah, ground vision from planes. Basically, SEED is better now. It was before the SEED missiles were buffed, but they couldn't see as far as the missile had range, and now they can. So now the SEED missiles go as far as you think they're going to go. And the KH-23AT missile not engaging at max range. So this is an interesting one. That's actually the MiG-23AT. So this is now better. Or you might say it's worse. So essentially, the closer you get to something, the higher the accuracy goes from the base. And so what was happening was it wasn't engaging at the maximum range. So you'd fly really close and shoot the missile, and then the accuracy would be really high. But as it stands now, it's going to shoot the missile at 35% accuracy. The thing is, it gets 2. So I think the first one will be bad, and the second one will have a much higher accuracy. Whereas before, I think it was only shooting 1. Don't quote me on that. Let's get back to it. And then, yeah, this AMX-10 firing its MMG from coaxial instead of turret. This looks fairly benign, but this is actually a pretty big buff to the AMX-10 RC. And the reason for that, so if... time to plug the Warno Patchnotes website. You can view this first link in the description. The Warno website, really good website. And see that now has a patch notes thing. So you also see changes which aren't in the patch notes here. For example, there's a new unit in the database for a Recon Abrams, and it's been nerfed despite not existing yet. So yeah, by fixing this coaxial turret thingy, what's actually happened is that the turret rotation speed of the AMX-10 and the AMX-10 Surblinde has gone up. So these tanks will now shoot faster because they can acquire the target faster. So that's actually a buff. Overall pass on SEED missiles. So basically SEED's really good now. The previous hotfix, it was getting there, but it still had some problems. For example, as we said, it wouldn't engage at its maximum range. Now it can. And yeah, units with the reservist trait takes 10% time to reload. So you might think, well, big deal. This is actually a huge nerf to TKS because all of their tanks are reservist. This is reservist. This is reservist. This isn't actually. And this is reservist. So military police, if they work yet, such as the Feldjäger, I think they work now, they remove unsteady traits, right? So you want military police with your tanks now to remove this reservist trait, because you're losing 10% fire rate, which isn't displayed on the stat card. So 10% of 10 is 1, quick maths. So this has actually just lost 1 ROF, which is kind of a big deal. This has lost almost 1 ROF, like 0.9 ROF, so it's basically lost 1 ROF. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. This has also lost 1 ROF. So you want that military police near your tanks now. Models and texture fixes. So this has a hidden nerf in it as well. The model fix to the T55 AM2B has removed the smoke from the T55 AM2B. I believe this is temporary because the model does have smoke launchers. This must have just been a bit of a bug. So let's talk about the rest of the balance. Escarte PC got the security trait. So Escarte PC is now... these guys are really good. So that for 25 points you get 8 men, security, and it comes in a knot warrior, a frog warrior. As I will show you. Not these guys. Escarte PC, yeah, you can get them in the AMX-10P. So this is actually a pretty potent combo, IFV, for 60 points with an 8 strength infantry that has the security trait. And the AMX-10P is amphibious, allegedly. And then, yeah, all tank CVs are now 30 points more than their base variant. And that has led to some interesting situations like this. So the M48A2 on TKS is now 95 points. So that is a buff to TKS, because this is now the second cheapest CV in the game. I think it's the second cheapest. The cheapest is the PT76B on KDA. We now have a 65 point CV in the game, which is really interesting. KDA, my opinion, the second worst division in the game. And yeah, we will return to that tier list at the end. So yeah, this is a cool buff to KDA. We'll see if they get used. I believe because everything is supposed to be 30 points more than its base. So as you can see, this 30 plus 30 is 65. Let me just check some things. Yeah, so that's 30. That's 30. Yeah, so as you can see, they're all 30 more. Moving swiftly on. So this results in some small buffs to the leopards. And yeah, all guys with 3 MGs have come down in price by 5 points. So this is your gunners, your airborne gunners, although I don't know if these guys were touched actually. I don't think they were. Maybe that's an oversight. So it's something like gunners or full... There we go. Full Machiki, gunners, you know, these guys are 5 points cheaper now. Whether or not we'll see more of them, maybe. You know, the suppression on them is pretty good, but right now there's not much difference between infantry. Like, you know, all infantry is kind of bad. At least all small arm infantry is kind of bad. And the airborne military police price went up by 5, so this was a long-awaited change, just because the airborne variants are always supposed to be 5 points more, right? And this one wasn't, so it's just a bit of an oversight. So it's gone back up now. That's been fixed. Mech rifles came down by 5 points. So if you recall, when the game first came out, mech rifles were like bread and butter, and since then nobody uses them. And yeah, maybe we'll see more mech rifles in 8th or something. I bring 1 card of them at 2 vet. It's just with infantry, small arms being so useless right now, you don't really see the utility of this over, you know, Fireteam Dragon, basically. Because if you want the Dragon, you bring the Fireteam Dragon, and it's a lot cheaper. So that's why the mech rifles have been coming down. Airborne Dragon went down 5 points in price, but... Oh no, hang on, I see. So Airborne Dragon and Fireteam Airborne Dragon are different. So before, nobody was taking Airborne Dragon because, well, why would you? You just get, you know, if you want the Dragon, you get the Fireteam Dragon. What's the point in the Airborne Dragon? And now maybe there'll be more reason to take it because it's come down in price. Probably not. Another TKS buff. So the Green Beret Leader has come down in price by a bit. So this is really cool, right? Because these guys, I've been using these guys a lot. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll know all about this. So they've got 12 strength, and they come in the Chinook, which has 12 strength. And so you get it basically, unless you run into an Eyehawk or a Cub over the enemy zone, you know, you will shrug off most light AA, and even if you crash land, 7 of these guys will survive right now. So it's a really cool combo, and now it's a little bit cheaper because before this was over 200 points. It's like 205 points, I think. Yeah, it was. So that's good to see that. And then yeah, another small change to bring the M60 to the 30 difference. As you can see, 120 minus 90 is 30. Smiley face. Right, so small nerf to third armored. Now, a lot of people have said this is nonsense. This is just totally nothing. This is not totally nothing. This is actually a sizable... Well, it's a sizable nerf to me, right? So before, this went 9, 6, 4, or something like that. It was definitely 9 and 6 on these two. But now, because it starts at 8, the second one is 4 instead of 6. So before, I had 12 M2A2 Bradleys, and now I have 8 in my deck in particular. Obviously, if I brought a third card, then you know, it's not a big deal, but it is somewhat of a deal. I've just lost 4 Bradleys. But yeah, what I'd really like to see is the Fireteam AT4 go down to 1 card. Because if you recall, when third came out, they only had 1... Well, they had no AT4, and that was kind of the point, that they're bad in forests. But then these got added, and they got 3 cards. Like, I think they only should have got 1 card. But they got 3 cards, and then they just became good at everything. And for 5 points more, you know, why would you ever take these? But now there's a bit more reason to, because... Oh, it was 963, yeah. Because, you know, if you want 2 more Bradleys at the same veterancy, then you can go for this instead. So now there's a bit more of a trade-off there because of this change. So I'm a big fan of this change. And Fireteam Dragon received the same change. These guys also come in the Bradley IV. The Airborne Fireteam Dragon also lost availability, so I think this is kind of a big deal because I believe this used to be, yeah, so this used to be 6 at max vet, and now it's 4. But yeah, losing 1 at 2 vet, probably not such a big deal. The AMX-30B command vehicle came down, and then, get this right, so the Roland 2s and Roland 3s got better, but only the French ones. The German ones didn't change. So that's obviously not fantastic. The AMX-10 Hot came down, so this thing is actually really good. I run this in my... I mean, I don't really play 5e anymore since that episode. But yeah, this thing is really good because the Hot 2 is great, and it's got 3 front armor and smoke, so it will survive a max range tank shot and then pop its smoke. You know, so let's say they both see each other at the same time at max range. The AMX-10 is going to get a shot off first because it's got higher range than a tank gun. Let's bring up a tank that you might see in your neighborhood. And then the tank's got to drive forwards, and it'll shoot, and it'll probably hit, but the AMX-10 Hot will survive on like 2 HP. So then the Hot 2 will land. You know, you'd hope that it would land, maybe it'll miss, but either way, once the Hot 2's finished landing, then you smoke. Whereas, you know, if this only had 1 armor, you'd shoot, the tank would run up to you and kill you before the missile even landed, and then the missile would miss, because it is manual guidance. The Mirage 3 went up in price, good. I mean, this has been long overdue. This thing was like 1453 availability, so it's absolutely absurdity. It's got the best turning circle in the game, which is not shown on the stat card. But, you know, back to this YS stuff, you can search for units, and you can go to expert mode, and it will tell you turning circles. Maybe it'll tell you turning circles. Yeah, see, turn radius 2120. Let's look at another one. Okay, maybe it doesn't have the best turn radius in the game, but this is 245 plane. Let's go to the Phantom F3, which could cost 175. Okay, maybe I'm wrong on that. Anyway, let's move on. But yeah, as you can see, it's pretty cool. You can see lots of cool stuff. Group anti-char availability went down, so this is good, because before on 5e, because small arms were useless, you know, people just wouldn't bother bringing Grenadier Voltigeurs, because the group anti-char, you know, had the same availability. So you would just bring the group anti-char and the VAB T20. Obviously that's gone now, we'll get to that. All long-range recon patrol except Fern Speyer on 5 Panzer went from 6 availability to 4 availability at 2 vet. So here's an example for you. You used to get 6 of these at 2 and 4 on max. Now you get 4 on 2 and 2 on max. So that's a good change, because these Wunderwaffen, they just do it all. This isn't a good example. Spetsnaz Gru for 65 points. Will kill you at close range, because it's, you know, forward deployment, shock, submachine guns. And it'll kill you at long range, because you're a sniper rifle. And if you drive a vehicle up to it, it'll probably kill that as well. And it's got exceptional optics, and it's got forward deploy. It's basically Rambo in a unit. So all of these have gone to that availability curve. So, you know, Spetsnaz grew 4-2, and it used to be 6-4. So this is great to see. I'm very happy to see that. I would have preferred just a total rework of that sort of unit, but this also works for me. Another command CV down in price. And SAS base availability changed from 4 to 3, but number of cards increased from 1 to 2. So this is really interesting, right? I think this is a nerf. I really do think this is a nerf, because where on earth do I fit in my second card of SAS? I need the first card, I need Air Mobile, I need Warriors, I need Pioneers, I need Terrier AT Group, I need Air Mobile Leader, I need Air Mobile Gun Group, I need Milan 2, I need Air Mobile. You get my point, right? So somewhere we've got to put in this this second SAS card. So yeah, it's interesting. Basically, what has happened is you've lost 9 infantry for 2 SAS. If you think about it logically, because you used to get 4 in a card, now you get 3, but 2 cards are 3, so it's gone from 4 to 6. So you gain 2 SAS, but you lose 1 card of infantry, which is 9 guys. So whether or not, you know, that's a buff or a nerf, it's up to you. I think it's a nerf. SAS Patrol, this was the first UK long-range recon patrol. Increased Jaguar GRA1 cluster price from 240 to 275, so this was a nerf to 2nd UK as well, because they get 2 cards with this. And this is their anti-tank. To be honest, I agree with this change. I agree with all of the changes so far, if that wasn't already obvious. Derek, please don't come and hurt me. This is one of the only clusters in the game that will reliably one-shot any tank in the game. And the other one got nerfed as well. So yeah, this makes sense for it to go up in price. It's a dive bomber, it's really hard to dodge. And yeah, it's good to see the price go up. And then the Lynx Helms came down in price, 50 to 45 and 80 to 55. They didn't go up to 45,000 or whatever I put in that meme at the start. So the reason for this is, if you look at like the French Gazelle Hot 2, you know, it used to be that the Helm was 80 points for just worse everything. But now it's a pretty good trade-off because, well, you might say, well, the Hot 2 is still better, Eugen, please. But the Hellam, for starters, I guess 8 itos, which is not insignificant. But the really important part is the 6 damage here, because all manpads in the game deal 4 or 5 damage. So, oops. So, you know, this Mistral is the best one. It deals 5. Strela, I think Blowpipe's the worst one, actually. And that deals 4. Right. So the Gazelle Hot will die to any manpad hit in the game. Whereas the Lynx Hellam will survive any manpad hit in the game. So this is actually a really cool trade-off now. It's like, you know, do you want the better missile or do you want to go home? So I think that's good. I agree with that. Right, now this is really interesting. And this is the biggest nerf to 5e. Because the VAB-T 2013, that hilariously annoying autocannon transport, is now an AA gun. And this is like a historical thing. And because it's now an AA gun, it's been restricted to the Mistral teams only. So, yeah. This thing, you just won't be seeing as much of it anymore, because it only comes with the Minstrels. And now it's got good anti-helo and anti-aircraft range, and not so good ground range, you know, because of the low accuracy. And this was like a historical accuracy change, but it's great to see this, because VAB-T 2013 is just driving around all over the bloody map with the 108 road speed, 90 km/h off-road speed, through the forest, you know, through the river, because it's amphibious, just wherever, you know, in the air. And now you'll be seeing a lot less of these, so 5e has taken a big nerf. Don't care about that. This is extremely big nerf to second UK, mainly because of how broken this was before. It used to be that the Terrier gun group would get the Warrior IFV, so you could get a 55 points. One sec. So you could get a 55 point IFV. Now you might say, well, what's the issue? You know, I get 50. Or you could get a 50 point IFV. Now you might say, well, who cares? 50 point IFV. You get 260 points a minute. If you can get a 50 point IFV, then you can get 5 of these a minute. Every minute until you run out. And because you can get 2 cards of Terrier gun group, that was 24 warriors. Right, so call it 25. That's 5 minutes of 5 warriors a minute. It was extremely broken. So it's great to see that come down. And then this is interesting. So Dad's Army has been added to the game. These are the home security forces. They're even worse than Terriers. And this is actually a really cool unit. So this is a buff to the UK. And you will be seeing this, probably. And the reason why is it's 20 men for 10 strength. And yeah, sure, they're reservists, and that is sad for them. But in terms of number of men per point spent, 12 availability, and yeah, they come at poor experience. But I think just in terms of number of men, I think this is the most cost-efficient card in the game. Because what are your options? Like, you got Zichrungs. Oh, and there's another Zichrungs. That's cool. Let's get the HSF up. So, yeah, look at the cost differences. So it's very cool. It's very cool. And, you know, you compare them to something like Vopos. Obviously, Vopos are better because they get the AT. But just in terms of pure number of men, pure shots to kill these guys for their money, I think they're the best sponge in the game. If I'm wrong, please correct me. This is really cool, actually. How many different options are there? 2, 3, 4... Well, it feels like it's not always the same. Like, that darkness is different to that darkness. Am I just making that up? Anyway, so Berlin, the AML 60 got nerfed. Nobody uses this because it's bad. Yeah, so the AML 60, 12, like 50 points for this gun that doesn't hit anything, and a 50 cal is just really not good. But now it's lost its 50 cal and it's got 2 MMGs, so it's even worse. So you probably won't be seeing this and BJS in Berlin got replaced by SEC. So I'm not sure who names these units, but yeah, this is actually a really big buff because these guys have the sniper, which is OP right now. And let's see how many they get. Yeah, they get 6 for 40 points, 6 snipers for 40 points, pretty big deal. So that's a big buff for Berlin. And replace 1 cards of Berlin Rifles RCR with the new Berlin Rifles law. So this was sort of a nerf, but it sort of doesn't matter. Because who was taking 3 cards of Berlin Light Rifles? But yeah, Berlin Light Rifles obviously amazing because they get the M67 and 10 strength. And the Berlin Light Rifles law, sort of 10 men for 45 points, like they're all right. But you know, for 10 points more, you can get the rifles, which come with the law 80, which is a lot better than the regular law. And you know, something like that. What other options have you got here? So yeah, I don't know if you'll see too much of this, but it is cool that it's in the game, right? But this is a multiplayer-focused discussion, so we don't focus on cool, focus on multiplayer. This was a big nerf to 4th. I truly believe that 4th is the worst division in the game, and it's been nerfed a lot this patch. And yeah, so what was going on here? Basically, you could get the BMP-1 with the PKM team for 40 points. Now, we just spoke about how you get 260 points in a minute, right? So that means that you could get 6 in a minute. And they come at like 12 per card, right? So you get 4 minutes of that. And that was really funny. But now this has been removed. And 7th got nerfed quite a bit in 2 ways. One, the T-72s went up in price. So this is perfectly reasonable because the T-72 was, for a long time, just the best tank in terms of cost efficiency. Best tank in the game, except maybe the Brennus, or the MX-30B2, which got nerfed last patch. So let's now compare the Chieftain Mark 9, which got a lot cheaper, to the T-72M that got more expensive. Now, for starters, the T-72M is faster, which is better. It has a HMG, which is better, and it has a longer range gun. Now, you may think, well, the Chieftain gets 1 more pen, but it doesn't. Because you get 1 extra AP for every 175 meters closer you move to the target, they actually have the same penetration on their gun. And the T-72M has 1 more rate of fire, but the Chieftain has 2 more armor on the front, and 1 more on the top and all this, but 1 less on the sides. So now it's actually a reasonably fair comparison. Whereas before, the T-72M was 135 points and was just blowing everybody else out the water. So when it was 135 points, you could get 1 Leopard 2A3 or 2 T-72Ms. Now, I'd rather have 2 T-72Ms. The reason, because a lot of lower level players have been speaking to me about this, and they say, well, it's 7th bad, 7th bad. The reason you didn't see it in the lower level games is because you need the micro to be able to effectively control twice as many tanks as your opponent. If you can do it, you're going to win. So 7th was way too strong, and these T-72s definitely deserve this nerf. Look how cool it looks. And yeah, so the T-80B's price came down. Now this, you might say, what's a T-80B? I never see that, because yeah, everybody just brings a T-80BV, right? And the T-80B was too expensive. So now it's a bit cheaper, but before it cost more than this, despite being the same. Now it costs less than this, despite being better. Eugen? Maybe the T-64B will come down next. I don't know. I might raise that one, actually. Anyway, raise the issue, not raise the price. Right, what happened next? So this is another big nerf to 7th, but this also hits 4th. which is very sad. And it, you know, it hits a couple of the divisions that get a couple of these planes. But basically, what's going on here? So when the SC-22 was introduced into the game, there was I think, from what I understand, the expectation was that this thing is like a really old plane, and therefore, you know, lots of availability because of how bad it is. But it's actually the best plane in the game. You know, in terms of like all the roles it can do, it's got these guns that one pass any helicopter. It's got these A-to-A missiles, great ECM, and you know, you were just like running around with what four of these. It was very silly. It was very silly, and so the availability's come down by 1. Now, before we spoke about how the Jaguar cluster was one of the only clusters in the game that could reliably one-shot any tank, and the other one is the SC-22 M4 cluster. So that's why that's come up in price. So now you know. And yeah, the T55 AM's price went up by 5. So we sort of touched on this before when we were looking at the TO. So now that I don't really agree with this. So the T55A doesn't get smoke. And that's a big deal because smoke basically gives you a second chance at life. Whereas something like that's 30 points more. What are those bad ones called? So, you know, in this basis, you can sort of understand why it's happening. It's got 2 more armor. It's not scared. It's got a HMG. So, yeah, it can be either way. It can be either way. But I didn't see much T55A spam before. Although the more I look at it, maybe this was a reasonable change. But the M48 gets the smoke, you see. Let me know what you think. Do you think this was a reasonable change? I mean, this is a two-way street, right? You can call me wrong. That's sort of the whole point. I will never delete your comments unless it's like illegal. If it's something illegal, I'll delete it. Or if it's just spam, if you're just like spamming something, I'll delete it. But anything else, I'll keep up. Another CV tank went down. Another LRRP change. Another LRRP change. Another long-range recon patrol change. This is the same as the gunners that we saw before. This is the airborne version of the gunners. So just to repeat this again, the guys with 3 MGs have all come down in price by 5 points. I doubt you'll see more of them unless there's some changes to infantry time to kill. Because right now, you know, it doesn't matter if you have 3 MGs. The infantry is just there to exist so that you can bring in like an IV and kill everybody. Yeah, another tank thing. We spoke about this. So TKS gets a little bit better in that they now have 2 CVs that are below 100 points. So that is interesting. I mean, maybe for team games they're better now. Don't think you'll see much of it in 1v1. Untermensch is now renamed Berlin Gropers. Don't know who names these divisions. And you might say, well, what's going on with the ZIS-3 howitzer gun? So once again, we can turn to the YS Patchnotes, and it will tell you the ZIS-3 got better. Wow. And I can see how much better it got, and I can click on it, and I can see things. It's still crap. You're still not going to see it. It doesn't really matter. Here we go, right? So 35Y has won hugely out of these changes, and that's because of this. I think they're one of the biggest winners of this patch. What the hell's an Afghansky? These guys get a sniper rifle, 7 men, advanced deployment, you know, obviously small arms don't really matter right now, 60 points. So I'm playing 35Y. And, you know, I've got these snipers, which I'm going to take out now. I've got 4 of these. And I've got... Where did I put them? And I've got 6 of these. So you've now got 10 to 12. 10 to 14 sniper rifles. So... considering how OP sniper rifles are right now, that's huge. If you're fighting against other infantry and you just start getting hit by 3 sniper rifles at once, you're dead before you can even react. So that's very big. It's very big news. And I think we'll be seeing some more 35Y. And I think they were a bit underrated anyway. 39Y lost a card of T80BV and gained a card of T80B. So you might say, oh no, 39Y cannot spam T80BV. The only competitive player on the planet that was bringing 16 T80BVs was me. And now I can only bring 12. But with the T80B getting cheaper, you know, that's cool. Why has this been done? So this is how I build my 39Y. I spam T80BVs. This is how I build my 79Y. I spam T80BVs. Do you see my point? These divisions are really kind of the same. They both spam the same tank. And so it would be cool if 39Y was more of a T80B division and less of a T80BV division. And 79Y was more of a T80BV division. And less of a... not that one. And less of a, you know... whatever. So, new Zickerungs for 4th and 7th. I don't know if you'll be seeing a lot of these, right? So this is the new Zickerungs. And Motshutson's sort of better. Let's talk about why. It's to do with the availability, basically. So if I want Motshutson, I can get 9 of them in a BMP1. You know, if I want the ATGM, let's say 75 points. The Zickerungs, you get 9 of them, but they come in a 0 vet. Whereas the Motshutson, you get 9 of them and they come in as veteran. So they're just way better, right? So you might say, well, it's twice as much. I don't want it. But the point is the veterans, you can't see the price. The point is, so for 20 extra points, I get 2 ranks of veterancy for free. I get an anti-tank rocket launcher, and you know I get the BMP one, which isn't fantastic. This is probably a better comparison. So let's talk about the transport. The Zickerungs come in the BTR-60PB, which has 1 front armor and all this, right? KPVT, great. The Motshutson BTR for twice as much. They get 1 more man, right? But the transport they come in gets 2 front armor, which is it's a bit of a difference, right? Let's have a look at the speed. The speed's the same. So for twice as many points, right? Not including the transport, I get a better transport. I get an MG. I get 1 more MG. I get an RPG, and I get 1 more man, and I get 2 veterancy. You know, I get this extra veterancy for free, sort of. So I don't think you'll be seeing many Zickerungs. It's a cool unit. I'm glad it's in the game, but I think from a multiplayer perspective, there's no reason to take that right now. Berlin Grope has got Grenzer Flam, so this is a... So check these guys out. It's actually really interesting. We now have a recon unit with a flamethrower. I'd love to see if people are going to use this. So, because typically you'd expect flamethrowers to be in forests where you don't really need recon. But now, you know, you can do some interesting things, right? So let's go to Berlin Gropers. Yeah, so let's say you don't want to... Well, okay, first let's address the elephant in the room, which is that, you know, before this, Berlin Gropers didn't actually get flamethrower. They got lots of RPOs, and no flamethrower. I think that's right. Yeah, it looks right to me. So now they get a flamethrower. So that is a buff, just a general buff. So yeah, you probably will see these guys because now they get flamethrower, and flamethrowers are the best. Well, I mean, they're good. The issue is the flamethrower's got like no ammo. So that basically you get 4 shots on this flamethrower before it runs out of ammo. Reserviston. What's going on here? So Reserviston, I don't know if you're gonna see these. I mean, it's good that KDA Untermensch, I mean Gropers, and Fourth are sort of starting to turn into different divisions, because it used to be that Gropers are just the good one, and the other two, it's like KDA plus Fourth equals Gropers, but now they're starting to turn into their own division, so that's good. But yeah, these reservist and 12 men at 1 vet, it's very cool. I just think right now the Vopos are so overwhelming. Like, you can... these guys crazy. You get 24 of them. And, you know, this plus the transport is the same price as just this. So I don't know if you'll see too much reservist just because the Vopos are so good. But you might do. It is cool that they exist. And then, yeah, here you go. So the Roland's not yet applicable to Germans. And then this is them telling you that... the T55 AM2B lost smoke. So what have we missed here? Whoops. The whole breach crate was fixed, so I'd like to thank everybody that shared that video of the tank exploding in the tournament game, because that helped. And yeah, we covered the corrections. Oh yeah, and we forgot to cover what was in the second hotfix. I didn't make a video on, so the Foxes went down to 4 per card, and 5 Panzer got his car Gustav back. And yeah, I forgot to mention this correction. So Dennis Salavat told me that Untermensch got the Acacia, not the Malka. In the previous video I said that Untermensch got the Malka. That is not true. So let's return to the tier list. What's going on with the tier list? So this was the tier list in Hotfix 2, so there's no need to talk about it because we're now in Hotfix 3. So what's happened? 5E's gone down. Are they still S tier? Are they A tier? I mean, we're on day 1 here. We don't know what's happening. It might have been bumped down to A tier. Second UK was high A tier before, maybe even S tier, just because of those Terrier gun group spam. That's absolutely crazy, and that's gone now. So I would now rank them as a B tier division. So just to clarify, B means good balance. B stands for balance. Everything above B is OP and needs to come down, in my opinion. And everything below B is weak and needs to come up. I'm weak. I'm weak. I'm weak. Anyway, 7th got hit hard, but I still think they're top, at least in 1v1. So that's why they're still in A tier. And yeah, TKS I had in A tier before, and you might think that's a bit weird. But I was developing some TKS strats, but all of their tanks suddenly getting worse is a pretty big nerf. So that's why they've gone down to B tier. Whether or not it's that far in B tier, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. And yeah, so I still think the changes to the US Airborne is incredibly minor. And I think there really is a good A tier level strat with US Airborne, where you can attack and do stuff. So basically at the start you smoke everywhere and rush in. Your howitzers are quite cheap. No thanks. Is it called like an M? They're all called M whatever. In the UK we name our motorways M. So like the M1, it's not a tank, it's a motorway. I want the American version of this. Yeah. So, oh, that's changed. That just actually used to list it as a number. Yeah, so for 65 points, you can put this at the start of the map and it will shoot to the middle of the map because of the 17k range. So that's pretty cool. So I was actually buying these at the start instead of these mortars, which, you know, cost like 90 points. And they have less range. See, at the start, you hit them with the smoke, you run at them, and then you spend the rest of the game holding. So that's why 80 seconds up here. I've missed a couple of things. Heavy tanks still dominate. The heavy tank problem hasn't been fixed. So I still think 3rd, 79Y, 39Y, and 8th ID are great, because the heavy tanks still dominate. Untermensch, you know, they got some small buffs. I mean, they lost one of their cluster planes as well. I still think they're great because basically the way you play Untermensch is that at the start of the game you make a really good forward deployed picket line with your FS Jäger Metis, your 2 cards of FS Jäger Metis and all that. Forward deployed Iglas and, Strellas, stuff like that. Then you bring up all the artillery, you hit them with all the artillery, and then you practically walk in with the Vorpos with a couple heavy tanks behind. So that's how you play them. 35Y I think was a big winner in this patch because of the Afghansky, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of them, especially on these infantry dominant maps like Chemical. You just get all the snipers out and just start sniping everybody. Fantastic. 7th, I still think we're going to see them. Just people are going to have to play a little bit slower because the T-72s are a bit more expensive and they can't spam their air out till there's no tomorrow. 2nd UK, will we still see them? I don't know. Let's see. And then, yeah, I mean, 5th Panzer, 1st Armoured. So 5th Panzer does have some advantages, and it did sort of get a buff in that the Fernspeyer stayed up. So the Fernspeyer still come at their old veterancy curve, whereas all the other ones don't. So these guys they still get the sniper. All the snipers do the same damage, by the way. And they get 6-4, whereas everybody else gets 4-2 now, so that's cool. Other advantages that 5th has is that the Leopard 2A3 comes on a medium... So there's heavy tanks and super heavy tanks, and these guys come on the heavy tank availability. So 6-4-2, whereas, you know, tanks that cost 5 points more don't. So this comes at 6-4-2, but a Challenger will come at 3-2-1. Do you see what I mean? So the Leopard 2 does have that going for it, and this is only 5 points more now. It still comes at 3-2-1, whereas the Leopard 2 is coming at 6-4-2. So that's something 5th Panzer's got going for it, but at the end of the day, fact of the matter is that the Leopard 2A3 costs 270 points, and you get 260 points in a minute. M1A1 Abrams costs 240 points, and you get 260 points in a minute. So I can buy an M1A1 every minute. I can't buy a Leopard 2A3 every minute. I can only buy one every 2 minutes. Or I could like save up a minute and then buy a bunch, I guess. But you get my point, right? So that's why you haven't been seeing that much 5th Panzer. Because the speed at which I can acquire M1A1s is far faster than the speed at which I can acquire Leopard 2A3s. And that problem is still here. So, but I do think that 5th Panzer is a well-designed division. I just think that everything in S tier is too powerful and needs to come down. 1st UK. 1st UK, I think, is the weakest tank division in the game. There's not much in it. They're a lot better than they were, so don't hate on me for this. But, you know, why do I think this? Well, for starters, we already covered the Challenger issue. You know, these guys are coming, the Leopard 2 is coming at 6-4-2, the Challengers are coming at 3-2-1, despite costing 5 points more, which is sad. But there's a couple other things with 1st, right? So you get the Terrier Power forward deployment. Wow, it's cool. It's so cool. So cool. You get forward deployment on a tank division. Well, the issue is that your AA is not forward deployed, right? And that's fair enough. And your AA is also quite low range. And that means that at the start of the game, you run all these guys forwards, but you can't defend them with your air in the same way that, for example, you know, 4th, they run forward their FS Metis, but they've got Cubs at the back, so if you bring up your plane, the Cubs are going to hit you, but the Rapiers aren't going to hit you. So at the start, if you spam all these guys out, they're all going to die to like helicopters and planes and stuff. And you might say, well, buy a fighter. Your fighter costs 245 points. So I think the forward deployment thing's sort of a bait. It's sort of a meme. Yeah, so, you know, they don't get 120mm mortars, they just get this, which keeps going up in price despite being garbage. And yeah, they struggle against planes. So these are pretty cheap now. You can get a lot of tracked Rapiers out, a lot of Javelin LMLs out, so that's really cool. But other tank divisions, such as 5th Panzer, 7th Panzer, 79Y, 39Y, and to an extent 3rd Armoured with the F-15, they can intercept the bomber before it blows up the tank. But 1st Armoured, because their AA is low range, and their planes are really expensive, they cannot intercept the bomber before it hits the tank, so the tank dies. And you don't get that much availability on the Challengers, and they're slow, and the Chieftains are slower. So the way I sort of play 1st is I spend the first half of the game spamming Chieftain Mark 9s, and just waiting for the enemy to blow them up and revenge kill his aircraft because I can't intercept them. And then once he's run out of aircraft, then I can start bringing up the Challengers. But you start to see the issue, right? So the Challenger Mark II, 2, 4, 6 in 3 cards. 7, 8 with the CV. But if you go to 5th Panzer, now I know I've said this before, but this is important, so that's why I keep saying it. I can get 2, 4, 6 at max veterancy, or I can get 4, 8, 12. Do you see what I mean? So I can get twice as many Leopard 2s at 2 vet than I can Challengers. So yeah, I do think 1st Armoured, once again, I think it's a well-designed division. It's just the fact that the guys at the top do everything. Yeah, I think they all need to come down a bit to this level. Berlin Command, I think this is a pretty good div, I really do. And yeah, why do I think that? Well, they get the snipers now. Manpads just keep getting better and better. The Nighthawk is actually really not that bad. And they get cool AT, they get really good infantry. So, and they get 2 cards of heavy tanks, they get 8 heavy tanks. And they get the autocannon in the form of the FV432 Radin. Which, it's only got 1 armor, but it's got the smoke, and you use it as a... you just use it for the autocannon. It takes a bit of getting used to because it doesn't come with the infantry, so you've got sort of microwave, you get 12 of them. So yeah, I do actually think that this is a pretty good div. It's got its weaknesses, it's got no long-range AA. So I think it's a well-designed div. TKS, spoke about this. So TKS is really cool in that you can snipe loads of CVs and win. Just check out the videos on my channel if you don't believe me. You can also attack the enemy with waves of cheap rubbish. It suffers in that it doesn't get a seed plane, so you're using your air, but you can't suppress enemy air defenses, so that they blow you up. Now its tanks are getting worse, so it's kind of hard for TKS. You have to play a very asymmetrical style of play, but I think on the bigger maps it can work. 2nd Panzer, I really don't rate 2nd Panzer right now. Like, what have they got going for them? So it's a heavy tank meta, and they've only got 1 card of Leopard 2s. So they get 4 Leopard 2s at 2 vet, because you can't bring them at 1 vet. They'll all die. So yeah, I think they're quite weak. Some people have told me that they're not... they're not bad, and they are B tier, after all, in my opinion. But yeah, a lot of people fall into this noob trap, and you can watch my game against Strom for this, although, he's not a noob, he's the best 2nd Panzer player in the game. And they do this thing, right, where they're like, I've got forward deployment. And they run out with their FS Jaeger in their little Unimogs, and they all get blown up because they've got no forward deployed AA. And once again, they suffer from the expensive plane syndrome. So they try to buy, like, Genas at the start to kill the helicopters, but it doesn't really work. They've got no good anti-helo, their helicopters are very weak. And so they send out all the forward deployment at the start, and it all dies, and then they lose the game. Whereas, what you can do, so because the Leopard 1A5s and the Leopard 1A 1A1s are so cheap, in about 5 minutes you can attack with this huge blob of Leopard 1s and Marders. Marders obviously very good. And you can overwhelm the enemy. Zickrung's in front, Leopard's behind, Milan's behind, you've got the Jaeger Aufklärer for this high HP recon. So something like a 5 to 10 minute timing attack would be really cool with these guys, but you don't really see that. You either see people rushing at the start and getting blown up, or you see people waiting, and then they wait too long, and then they've got Leopard 1s going up against T80 BV spam, and they just lose. So you've got to do this sort of pseudo early game attack, but most people just get baited by the FS Jaeger. 11E is just crap. So on some maps they're really, really good, right? But infantry small arms aren't amazing right now, so they're relying basically on the Gazelle cannon spam. Now, Gazelle cannon spam is pretty good. The Gazelle cannons are very good right now, because Spag is anti-air guns like this one Not sure what he's looking at. They're kind of bad. So you can spam out 10 trillion gazelle cannon. Not as many as you used to be able to, but look, I can even put another card in here. And the Puma Pirates. And you can airdrop a bunch of air mobiles. And then if the game goes past like 5 to 10 minutes, you know, sure, you get the 12 Legionnaire Pirates. That's pretty cool, actually. These guys are really good. But you've got no sustain on an open field because this thing's really, you know, it won't survive a heavyweight fight. Same for this thing. And so that's interesting. Yeah, so you got this early game, and then you want to bring out the air, and the Cubs shoot all the air. I mean, at least you got seed. Or let's just say you're feeling wacky. You can play TKS. You can spam out your Gazelle cannons at the start. You've got your forward deployment at the start. You've got your air mobile spam. Right? And then if the game goes a bit later, you've got really good artillery, and you've got tanks that can actually do something. I mean, they're not amazing. And so I think TKS is just a better 11E. The only thing TKS is missing is, you know, super high vet infantry, which isn't really too important right now. And seed. It doesn't get seed. But yeah, the TKS, you can just bring out the IHOGs and blow everything up. Bring out the Roland 3s. You know, what can you do on 11E? 11E doesn't have the arty. I mean, sure, these things aren't bad. And it doesn't have the tanks. And it doesn't have the long-range AA. So, you know, wow, I get so many more gazelles. Yeah, good for you. But, you know, I hope you understand my point. Laboured it for long enough. So yeah, we're almost there. And now we're down to, you know, the worstest divs. KDA and 4th. So KDA and 4th they're just so bad. I mean, KDA has got this whole kind of Vopos thing going for it, where you can spam the Vopos, spam the T55As. The T55A got nerfed, and the Vopos come in Untermensch. Sorry, Gropers. And yeah, there's very little reason to play KDA when you can play Gropers. Gropers is KDA plus 4th. Now, you know, what does 4th get that Gropers don't? So 4th gets one less card of FS Metis, but it does get the FS SPG 9, and it used to get PK and BMP 1s in transports, and it used to get a better air tab. But its air tab has been nerfed, because the SU-22's got nerfed on the 7th, and that nerfed 4th. And so 4th has gotten worse. Yeah, so I really do think 4th is the worst division in the game right now. I really do believe that. Let me know what you think. I've spoken for 58 minutes, and I'd like to go to bed. I hope I've covered everything. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you think it's crap, let me know. If you think it's good, let me know as well, because, you know, I'd rather just play the game, right? So if you guys think this is useful, you have to lobby me to make this, otherwise I'm just not going to make the next one. And yeah, I hope you have a pleasant weekend, evening, whatever.